Hi, everybody. Welcome back. And if this is your first time, welcome. Today, we're going to be talking about something I brought up in yesterday's video, uh, top bunk versus bottom bunk. In yesterday's video, it was clear that being on the bottom bunk in some situations, especially if the person above you is in opiate withdrawal, can be a downside. But for the most part in prison, that's not the case. Most of the time, the person who ends up on the top bunk is either somebody that got punked out of their bottom bunk or they just got there last, right? When you show up to the area that you're at, this isn't an open dorm, by the way. If you're in a cell, that's between you and your cellmate. Maybe the guards will insist you go to a certain bed in that top and bottom bunk situation. But in an open dorm, people move beds all the time. Not supposed to, but it's, again, one of those things like there's not enough guards in the world to chase all the prisoners around trying to make sure they're in the right bed. So power comes into it a lot more. When I showed up at my dorm for the first time, everybody was already established. All the people in my area had already been there forever. And I was still super naive. I'm not somebody, once I got comfortable, that was going to take somebody's bed anyways. But luckily, I wasn't put in a situation where I had to defend my right to the bed I had been given. I got a crappy bed up top in a corner. And here is why bottom bunk is best. Now, it seems like you're on the bottom bunk. People have more access to you. You're more exposed. Everybody in prison is sleeping on their back. I'm pretty sure I've said it before, but sleep on your back or somebody else will. That's basically how it goes in prison. So whether you're on the top bunk or the bottom bunk, it doesn't really matter. You're still going to be acting as though somebody's coming for you, even if you're on everybody's good side. But if you're on the bottom bunk, you are much better able to protect yourself. If you're on the top bunk, you're at the mercy of whoever shows up beside your bed. Because the only way down is a 6, sometimes more than that, foot drop. A lot of times, most of the time, there's no convenient way off of these beds. It's not like they provide super easy to climb ladders or some type of pulley system. You just hop up if you can and hop down. That's how I got plantar fasciitis. People get injured ankles all the time. And I don't just mean like, oh, my ankle hurts. I mean, like, people chip bones all the time. People fall off the bed. It's not easy. It sounds crazy, but day in, day out, climbing up onto metal, jumping off of metal onto concrete hurts the human body. It just does. So if people decide that they're going to mess with you and you're on the top bunk, you are trapped. You're trapped. The only benefit that I can think of for a top bunk, which this basically puts the argument to rest in my mind, is sometimes some top bunks are closer to fans. But most of the time, they're just as far away as bottom bunks, and you're more exposed. And if you're the unlucky son of a bitch that gets the top bunk right next to the TV, and you don't want to watch Jerry Springer all the time, good luck sleeping. Because the TV is on loud enough so that everybody in the dorm can hear it from half a mile away. What did Lucinda do? You can hear the show. So if you have the bed right by it, it is screaming at you all the time. It doesn't matter if you talk to the guards and say, oh, I can't sleep. It's too loud, and oh, it's heartbreaking what Jeremiah cheated on. It's not going to work. You're stuck in that bed. It doesn't matter. Top bunks, yeah, kind of feels like a treehouse. I guess that's sort of fun. You're up in the air. But it's seriously exposing. Think about what you do in bed at night. Think about it. Really think about it. All the stuff you do in bed at night. And I'm not saying with somebody else. I'm saying by yourself. You got an itch, you're scratching it. You got you're picking it. All that. If you're on the top bunk, people have their spy glasses out because they're bored, and they can see everything. What little semblance of privacy you get on a bottom bunk, right? You get to drape towels or blankets or whatever to have some shut out of the dorm and the yelling and the lights and the top bunk. None of that. You're screwed. You're stuck. I don't know, man. I only met a couple people who ever preferred the top bunk, and I don't get it. Diesel. I brought up Diesel a lot. That was my buddy, my bubby. And I saw him on 3 separate occasions have a bottom bunk and it get taken from him and him sent back to a top bunk. Now, if you're on a top bunk, it's not just like, oh, that dude's a bitch. It's not like that. But if people are taking your bottom bunk and sending you to a top bunk, it's pretty clear where you fall in the hierarchy. It was something that I had never thought about before I went to prison. The difference between the top and the bottom bunk. I basically figured, okay, if you get sent to this area first, you take the bottom bed, and if you get sent there second, then you take the top bed. That's it. But all of the people that had any modicum of respect were in a bottom bed. Just because you were not in a bottom bed doesn't, how do I say this? Just because you were in a top bunk doesn't mean you were insignificant. But if you were significant, you were in a bottom bunk. That's just how it went. The guy that had all the drugs he was selling to everybody, bottom bunk. He's not wheeling and dealing from the top bunk right by the camera where all the guards can see. It's not happening. There's an element of discretion on a bottom bunk, right? The tattoo guy, you're not up on the top bunk spread eagle so he can give you that really cool butterfly on your crotch. It's not happening on the top bunk. It's all happens on a bottom bunk. So it's sort of like what is it? All squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are squares, right? Is that how it goes? Yes, maybe. If you are on a top bunk, now I forgot. If you're on a bottom bunk, if you're significant, you're on the bottom bunk. If you have a role to play, whew, that's difficult. If you asked me 10 years ago, are you going to be making a video about beds? I would have said definitely not. Definitely not. I was lucky. I ended up in an area of the dorm where everybody knew each other, but were inclusive, right? My little area, C, right? It was C, yes, because A, B, and C. I was in C. I actually can't, C7? C7 bottom, I think. That was my bed number. Everybody was from the same neighborhood. They were, a lot of them were neutrons, not affiliated, so they were like more welcoming. So when I showed up, and I initially had this top bunk, when a bottom bunk cleared out, they didn't invite one of their bubbies from another place in the dorm, hey, come take this bottom bunk. They said, Max, that's your bottom bunk now. You get that. So I moved down. And that was really the beginning of me getting comfortable in prison, right? Because I go to jail, I get sent to RDC, I'm exposed, I'm vulnerable, I'm miserable. I go to prison, it's a slight improvement, but now I'm up on this top bunk, everybody can see me, it's uncomfortable. And a few weeks in, I move to this bottom bunk, and I really start to settle in. I get my books, sent to me. I build that bookshelf out of cardboard. I hang some bed sheets. You couldn't be completely covered up because they're afraid that everybody's gonna have sex with each other. Seriously, that's what the guards would say. We can't let you have sex. So it's like, well, not gonna happen. Okay, it's not. Believe it or not, me putting towels beside my bed is not just because I'm a playa and I'm getting it. It's because I want some privacy. So I started to settle in, make this area my own. Some people hang pictures above their bed on the underside of that top bunk. Again, if you're on the top bunk, you can't do that. The only thing that you can do with a bed on the top bunk is sleep in it or jump off of it. Try to off yourself. Get out of the prison. That's it. There's no other benefit. I've seen a couple other videos where people are arguing that the top bunk is like, yeah, you can see everything that's happening. You can hear everything that's happening. You don't need to have eyes on it. That's ridiculous. I don't know I'm sure some people are at prisons where they have to like post a lookout like it's Game of Thrones and like they're the watcher on the wall. I'm sure that happens. But where I was, if somebody's getting into a fight on the other side of the dorm, not only could I tell you that it was happening, I could probably tell you who it was and their shoe sizes based on just the on the ground of their feet skidding on linoleum or whatever it is. Concrete, linoleum, hello. It's a kitchen from the 1970s. So it's not up for debate, I guess is what this video should be called. Not top bunk versus bottom bunk in prison debate, but who are you? Who wants to be on the top bunk? What childhood did you miss out on that you're now recreating it by pretending you're in a tower in some dorm? No. I don't know if any of you slept in bunk beds when you were little. My brother Andrew and I had a bunk bed. And maybe this is why I hate top bunks, actually. I was chasing him one day with this water squirter, and he'll probably tell you about it in the comments, honestly. Chasing him with this water squirter, like that you would, I don't know, like spray the leaves of a plant with or something. Like basically an empty Windex bottle that I had cleaned out and filled with water, something like that. And he runs up there and like hides under the covers, up there being the top bunk. And I run up and I start like spraying him through the blanket or whatever. And he didn't mean to push me off, but he's flailing and I get knocked off the top bunk. And that was the only time I've broken a bone other than like a digit or something like that. But I broke my left arm. And I don't even remember it hurting. I remember crying, and it wouldn't have even broken, but I landed on like a giant Lego, right? It wasn't a Lego. It wasn't a collection of Legos. It was like one of those, I think, what are they, Build-A-Blocks or something? I don't know. But a giant Lego, and it like created the perfect amount of leverage so that I broke my left arm. I was, I don't know, I think 8. Pretty sure I was in 2nd grade or 1st grade, something like that. Maybe that's why I hate the top bunk, but I think anyone who's arguing that that's the place to be in prison is crazy. I think the whole thing for me was get as much privacy as you possibly can. And that's a bottom bunk exclusive. That's it. That's it. Thank you guys. Have a good day. Talk to you soon. Bye.